Hey, you, watching this video right now. I have a question. What's stopping you from doing exactly what I'm doing right now? All I'm doing is putting a microphone on, putting it in front of my face, and then just saying what's on my mind. Then I'm going to take that and just upload it to YouTube with gameplay or some shit in the background. You should do the same thing. Nothing's stopping you. You should. You know, it's weird. We have this thing on the internet now that we can see everyone's opinions at all times. We can see everyone's opinion on their Twitter pages or on their Instagram. And you always see their opinion through text-based forms. And you always you're always just like, man, I don't want to see these minutes. I don't want to see your opinion. Nobody gives a fuck about your opinion. And I always thought that too. But then I realized, like, what do I do most of the time when I'm like drawing or when I'm playing games or doing something that is sort of brainless? I have like a podcast on in the background, and if it's not a podcast, it's probably like a let's play, or maybe some weird video essay type of thing. It's something that is someone mostly just talking, background noise to occupy my brain. That's how these videos are supposed to be viewed, and it's really not hard content to make. It's not hard content to make. It's very easy to make. Very easy. You don't need to know what you're doing. You can just do it. There's so many tutorials to just make shit like this. And you can do it too. And I think that despite a lot of people trying to say your opinion is going to get lost in the sea of voices on the internet right now, that's not really it's true to a degree, because you're never going to have a unique opinion. I don't think anyone ever does. It's about how you express that opinion, what you say, and how it comes off to people. It's your charisma. It's your riz. Funnily enough, but it's your aura. It's your vibe, bro. It's your groove, man. It's what you say, your words you're using, your vocabulary choices, even your voice. You could have a very charming, I have a deep voice, and I can't do a deep voice, I'm a tenor, but, you know, you could have a deep voice and have a really soothing to the ears voice. I don't have that. I have a very nasally kind of voice. I'm very fucking loud and just tenory, but I try to make up for that with just being myself and getting off the cuff and just saying whatever I can. And like I said, I just don't think it's that hard to do. And I'm new to making content that's just talking like this. And yet I've always wanted to be a podcaster or something, because it's always like the form of it's the medium that I listen to the most. Is just people talking, whether it be over gameplay, streaming, podcasting, whatever it is. It's my favorite type of media because I can do other things while I listen to it. And I still feel like if I'm not learning something, I'm laughing at something or just being entertained by something. And you don't have to learn to be entertained. You can read books that are just comedy books, and people think books are educational. No, they're not all of them. Most of them probably are just books. They're just as educational as your Twitter feed, but they're just in book form, so people think they're educational. You know, podcasts and stuff, you could be listening to Radiolab, which is going to teach you something, or you could listen to, like, you know, Sleepy Cabin or something, which is just going to be a bunch of edgy humor. But either way, you're going to still be gaining something out of that. You're going to be getting entertainment from that. And so, yeah, I mean, if talking is the easiest way to make entertaining content, why not just do it? But that goes on to other things too, because I feel like people hold back even more when it comes to creating things like art or music. I mean, unless you want to call this art, but what I mean by art is basically visual art, but pretty much anything that qualifies as a work that you can show off to people, that you can publish and show off and, you know, put time into and effort into. I've been making music for 12 years now. I started in 2012. So whenever you're watching this, that's the year I started. However long it's been, over a decade I've been making music. But when I started, the first thing I did when I found out it was possible to make music on my own without the need for a band was, I was like, oh fuck, what do I do? How do I do it? I looked up all these tutorials, found out what programs I needed to use. It started because I got into dubstep. But before that, I was really into Blink-182 and Green Day, My Chemical Romance, The Offspring, a bunch of punk bands. I mean, those are like, you know, pop punk. But then I got into like more actual punk bands like, you know, Adolescence, Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, these bands, Descendants especially. I got into these bands that sounded like, oh my God, they sound like kids in a garage, because that's what it was. And at the time, I was like 12. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't afford a recording equipment. I definitely didn't have any. Like, I didn't have access to any of that stuff, and they were a little bit older than 12 years old when they were doing these bands. They were probably 16 to 18 years old, and I gotta wait to get to that point. But in the meantime, what I did have was my mom's digital camera. She had like a little like Canon, I'll throw up the model number later, but I don't remember exactly which one it was off the top of my head. It was like 300A or A300, something like that. Some shitty camera, and the video, it was mainly for pictures, like those shitty 2007 looking pictures that probably have novel value now. They're probably novelty. Like, you could probably get a camera like that and use it as like for like novel sake. Whereas, like, you know, back then it just looked weird and uncanny to me, because I was so used to, like, you know, printed pictures, Polaroid pictures, shit like that. You get this shitty camera, it's a digital camera, but it's not a high-end digital camera, it's not a DSLR. I don't even know if that existed at the time. I don't know, man. I'm not a camera guy. But, you know, I got this camera. My mom got this camera, and she never used it. So I found it, I snuck it, and I like deleted all every fucking pictures off the SD card so I could make shitty little YouTube videos. This is like 2010, 2011. And, no, I'm sorry. I was 10 or 11. This was like 2008, probably around that time. And, I just was like, I saw people like Ryan Higa, and people like Fred and people like Smosh especially, where I was just like, oh, they're just making YouTube videos in their rooms. I want to do that with my friends, and we did. That channel ended up getting erased and shit like that later, but I want to get to that because it's a big part of what didn't stop me versus what eventually scared me. So when I was in elementary school, I was probably in 4th or 5th grade when I found out about YouTube, and I found out about it because of this video called The iPod Human by Ryan Higa. And you could find that video. It's probably still up. It's from 2006. And it's known as one of the most legendary YouTube videos. At least people my age think that, because it was like just this thing that was like, oh, you could just make funny comedy, humor, skits, whatever, in your room with a camera. And probably use... like, what do you use to edit that? I'm thinking. And then I'm like going around, like, I used to be infatuated with just exploring the files on my computer, my parents' computers, or like if I had a computer, which I had like a Windows 95. I mentioned in a previous video, I had like a Windows 95 computer, like when I was a very young child, like 4 or 5 years old, and I would just fuck around in Microsoft Word and try to recreate the covers to Now CDs. Now that's what I call music CDs. And I would just like think of my own songs and like make the covers for those in Microsoft Word. It's very, very nerdy. Eventually my mom had this like Windows XP computer in her room, and it had Windows Movie Maker on it, the original. And I remember noticing that. And then, like, around the same time, I'm finding my deceased dad's, like, old stuff. Like, he'd passed away when I was younger. And but he was super into film and shit like that, especially music and stuff. And so I was, like, digging through his stuff one day, finding all these tapes, and none of them were, no, I don't have any fun stories about finding any, like, crazy, oh my god, I found this pornographic tape. It's always just tapes of him making, like, stop-motion animation. And making and just filming his like friends and his band and us as kids, me and my sister and shit like that, our family. And I was just like, man, he just wanted to make films. I'm sure he was one of these, he had a video camera from like 1987. And in 1987, he would have been probably maybe the same age I am now or younger. So he was very much on that shit before it was, like, he was onto home video before that was a very, people, way before phones, but before even like digital cameras. And before even like those handy cams. But I used to use his like Sharp handy cam thing that was all using 8mm tapes. And again, I'm not like that old. Like, it's not like this was the only, like, there were digital cameras at this time. I just didn't have access to them. So I made do with these analog, these 80s, 90s, mostly mid 90s like cameras. and I would use VCRs to edit them by stopping and pausing like certain parts of the film, and I would have outtakes, and I would like film my friends playing baseball and like edit it together and try to make it look like a movie. And I'd learn how to, like, I had this VHS player that I had. It could emulate, or you could do like things where you could put like text over the video. Or no, that was the camera. Sorry, it wasn't the VHS player. It was the camera that I had. Actually, no, it wasn't even a fucking camera. I'm sorry, I'm getting my memories mixed up. It was like an 8-track editing bay thing, I guess, that I found, and it had like you could like put like text over the video. I don't know. I used to get really creative with the shit. And I figured it all out just by fucking around and finding out. And that's my motto: fuck around and find out. And then I'll get back to that, because again, that's the big. I probably won't get back to anything that I said I'm gonna get back to, because this whole series is just rants and stuff off the cuff. But you know what I did find out was that I like doing this stuff. I like making stop motion things. I used to build things out of Play-Doh, and I used to like make stop motion with these like analog cameras. Then I found out, my mom has this digital camera. I can make YouTube videos now, because there was never a way for me to get those analog tapes onto YouTube or onto the computer to edit them. I had to edit them using VCRs and other 8-track players and stuff. Once I found out about digital cameras, and I was like, oh my god, so I can finally live this dream. Now, I made some YouTube videos, but then I realized I want to actually make music. Like, music has been my thing. I've always wanted to be in a band. I told you earlier I was saying about the punk bands. I found that music when I was like 11 or 12 through Tony Hawk games. And I just remember being like, I can do this. I played drums back in the day. I still play drums. But now I play a little bit of everything, and I learned how to do all of that just through the fact that I wanted to make songs with guitars in them, but I didn't know anyone who played guitar. And so I was like, I guess I have to learn guitar now. And I was like 16. I was like, I guess I wanted to make rock music. But anyway, I started out by making dubstep music. And the only reason was because I found out you could make dubstep music without needing a band. Like, I remember, like, I wasn't into dubstep at all until I talked to this one second cousin showed me dubstep back in like 2011, and he showed me like Skrillex and stuff, and I was like 14, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't really care about the music that much. I thought it was cool, and then I started hearing it in like a lot of machinima stuff and a lot of like Call of Duty montages, which I was into at the time. Which mostly were using like screamo, or like not screamo, but like metalcore, you know. And I wasn't really into that kind of stuff. But I remember when the dubstep thing happened, they were starting to use dubstep songs, and I was like, okay, I kind of like that. That sounds kind of cool. And then I remember seeing that Pine Pinel band that did the Skrillex covers back in the day. If you're a dubstep person, you probably remember that, if you're at least as old as I am. And they were a live band that used a modified like bass with a modified like pickup with this ring that could like make it do filtered sounds. Some real like Nine Inch Nails pendulum shit, I guess. I don't know, some weird shit. But I thought that's what dubstep was. I thought they were Skrillex. I thought those guys were Skrillex. I didn't know Skrillex was just some dude. I thought that those guys were Skrillex. I didn't know yet. And then I found out about Skrillex, and I found it's one guy making techno music, essentially. Because I used to like those, techno YouTube poop songs, those techno songs, like Root Sandstorm, of course, is the obvious one. You also had your Scatmans and your This Is Sparta remixes, and there was the Popcorn song, shit like that was like always big on the internet. Your Every Time We Touches. And I didn't know what the fuck that was either. I always thought those were bands too, because back then people couldn't comprehend DJs in America. So if like Dirty Vegas were to like perform Days Go By on the fucking morning show in America, they would actually have a full band. It's so weird, because it's an electronic song made in it's not a band. Dirty Vegas is not a band. It's like a duo, I'm pretty sure, unless it's one person. They are not a fucking 4-piece rock band with electronic sounds. Like, I thought that's how it worked, because TV told me that's how it worked in America. It's not how it works. Whereas, like, Europe, they were way more open to the fact that there's actual DJs. You got your Daft Punks. I didn't even know. I thought Daft Punk was just like, I thought they were a band. I really thought Daft Punk was like a full-on fucking rock band or like disco band. I didn't even know what French House was, let alone like the fact that it was two people with like samples. I didn't know that. I didn't know what a sample was. I thought they were a fucking rock band. Anyway, Anyway, I find out you can make electronic music. You can make your Daft Punks and your Skrillexes and your Dirty Vexes. You can make that shit by yourself in your room? How do I do that? I look it up. Oh, you need this thing called FL Studio. That looks too hard. But I have used Mixcraft because I was like, oh, I wanted to make animation. I wanted to make cartoons, and I was like, how do I make music for cartoons? Oh, well, GarageBand. I know about GarageBand. Well, what's GarageBand for Windows? Oh, Mixcraft. You get Mixcraft. Boom. And I'm like, oh, I'll use Mixcraft to make dubstep. I used it to make dubstep. It was terrible, whatever, but I thought it was cool at the time. and then thus the Sixer was born, which you can find the original uploads for the Sixer on this channel. It's technically not my first channel, but it was like 4 months after my old channel. I stopped using my old channel that I started uploading to this one. So the Auroral Synapse remix from Deadmau5 that I did is like the first video, I'm pretty sure, on this channel, if not the first dubstep song that I did. That's like the first song technically that I released. Not technically, that's the first song that you can hear of mine. That's the earliest thing you can hear of mine. But there were things before that that I'd uploaded and deleted and whatever. None of it's worth it. It's all just it's all shit. I mean, including that one. But you know, you can hear my old music and hear like that's just me fucking around as a kid, as a teenager. In well, at the time I was using Mixcraft, and then I switched to FL Studio. And that was the first thing I made on FL Studio, was that Deadmau5 remix. And I only used that one synth, the Auroral Synapse preset from Harmer, I think it is, Harmer, or the other one. There was Harmer and something else, but I don't remember which one it was. There were two like Harm-esque named like plugins for FL Studio, stock plugins, and I can't remember the other one. But it was one of those. And I haven't used FL Studio in like years, over 10 years. I switched to Ableton pretty short after, but either way, you know, it doesn't matter what program you use, but what matters is that I had the balls to just put that shit out there. And instantly I was thinking, what's my album gonna look like? What's it gonna sound like? I'd always wanted to make an album. Even as a kid, I would just draw album covers and make 10 track lists of songs, with fake times and everything. And I would actually listen to Jesus of Suburbia on CD, on American Idiot, on my CD player, because it was the longest song I knew at the time, or at least the longest song I had on CD. It was like 10 minutes long, so I would like sing a song in my head, and then once that song was over, I'd check the timer on the Jesus of Suburbia CD, and it would say like 3:43 or whatever, and then I'd stop it and write down 3:43. You know how they have in the back of CDs? This is probably going over some people's heads, surprisingly. I mean, I know that most people overestimate the age gap when it comes to technology. Like, people think that, like, I'm 27, people think that people my age don't know anything about VHS or anything. It's like, no, I grew up with VHS. Like, because our families were poor. Like, we couldn't afford DVD players. Even though they were the thing when I was growing up, they were popular, they were obviously the most mainstream thing. My family couldn't afford that shit. We didn't want to rebuy the same movies we had when they were already on VHS, and we already had them on a working VHS player with a working TV. Flat screen TVs existed. I didn't have one until 2010. So, you know, I was always behind the curve on curve. Is it curve or curb? Curve, right? Yeah, behind the curve, not behind the curb, right? Who knows? Anyway, I was always behind the curve on that shit. Most people are, technically. Like, you talk to people younger than you, and you're like, oh, you guys don't even know what a DVD is. You only know Blu-ray. You don't even know what Blu-ray is. You only know streaming. And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure they probably even know what VHS is. Some of them probably grew up at the very tail end of VHS. Like, I guarantee if you're born in like 2005, you were probably like 3 years old when you maybe saw Ratatouille VHS. I don't know if that existed, but like, you know, people, I remember watching VHS tapes in like 2007. Like, anyway, that's a tangent, but you know, like I said, I was always pretty behind the curve on technology, so I always had to make do with what I had. I always had to use shittier technology than normal, but that makes me very familiar with how this stuff works, with you know, like, how it worked to, again, like, use 8mm tapes, which my generation, people my age, should know. Most people my age don't know what that is, unless they're, like, a nerdy and into film and stuff. Anyway, I got a little bit off track there. I was talking about CDs and using CD players to time out songs that I was writing in my head and then drawing album covers to, writing lyric books to, in the vein of the American Idiot lyric book. You know, if that's a relatable thing, I heard Tyler, the Creator, say something about that. He did something similar. The reason we did that was because, or the reason I did that was because, you know, I didn't have a smartphone. I'm pretty sure smartphones might have even been out at the time, but I didn't have one, and so I couldn't just set a timer. And, you know, I didn't even realize I wasn't, my timer was at Jesus Suburbia. So I used to do that, make that. Anyway, the whole point of this is that be a curious kid And if you were a curious kid and you're like a teenager or you're a young person at all, and you're questioning yourself and your confidence on whether or not you want to put something out because you're afraid people are going to see it and think negatively of it, or they'll make fun of you for it, you just got to know that it doesn't matter. 10 years from now, you're going to wish you did it because it's going to be too late for you to not done it. Or I don't know if that made sense, but it's going to be too late. It's not going to be too late. It's never too late, but it's going to feel like it's too late. And, you know, it's always going to feel like it's too late. It's never going to be a right time to do this kind of thing, to get into just making things. Whether you've been thinking about it for a long time, I need to make an album, I really would love to make an album. Don't settle for anything less. Don't say, I want to make an album, but all I know how to do is play drums. So I guess I'll just join a band as a drummer. Man, you know, that's so limiting though. Don't do that. Just learn guitar. I know it's like crazy, right? Doesn't that sound crazy? Just pick it up and learn. Well, yeah, do it. Instead of sitting down and playing fucking whatever game is on screen right now, or whatever game you're thinking about right now, don't play that game, man. Go fucking look at some tabs. But, you know, apply that to everything, especially music, especially art, especially YouTube. And don't be afraid of, especially of your IRL friends, because I remember when I used to do YouTube back in 2011, when I was a very young kid, I would upload those videos, and this is elementary school, and nobody really knew about YouTube back then, at least my age. We were all in 4th grade. I was a computer tech, like, nerd kid, and now all my friends were, so we were the only ones that knew about YouTube. And so we would make YouTube videos and share YouTube videos and stuff. It wasn't until like middle school, like 2010 or whatever, 2011, when like kids started picking up on my YouTube channel. And they would make fun of me for it, because if you look back on it now, you could obviously see it's cringy. I was a very cringy kid. Like, I'm not going to say like I was relentlessly bullied for no reason. It's like, no, I was relentlessly bullied because I was a fucking cringler, like cringy. I was the cringler. I was cringe. I was so cringe. And so I get it. I'm not gonna, but that didn't deter me, I should say. That didn't deter me. It did at one point though, when I deleted my first channel. It was when I was like 14, and so this would be 4 years after the creation of it, or so, 3 or 4 years. And I was at a friend's birthday party, and he pulled it up to fuck with me and make fun of me in front of his friends. I mean, he's my friend now. At the time, it was middle school, and we were both boys, and we grew up together, and it was just like, his friends were all jockey, you know, sports kind of guys, and I wasn't the one nerd at the party. It was just his friend, because we lived on the same block. And so they all fucked with me, and they made fun of me for it. And I was definitely shook by that, so I went and just deleted the channel in front of all of them. I was like, well, fuck you guys. I'm not going to let you bring this up and make fun of me for it. So I just deleted it. And that is one of the biggest regrets of my life, because I wish I could go back and watch. I had whole series. I used to make entire cartoon series and I used to animate in MS Paint and use Movie Maker. But I put so much effort in, and I remember like layering everything. Oh yeah, wasn't that my main point? Was like the way I started making music was like I had this digital camera, and I remember like, yeah, I wanted to make videos, but then I realized I could use the audio from those videos, just export the audio from Movie Maker, and then export it again, layer it with other audio from that camera. So I would like record my drums, and I'd record my piano over those drums, and I'd record like a different piano over those things, and you know, I would just put that shit together. And that was before I knew what Mixcraft was. Then I downloaded Mixcraft, and then I realized, oh, you could just do this easier. Anyway, that was getting back to that. But anyway, my point is that, yeah, I got bullied for what I did. I got bullied for putting shit out. I got bullied for being myself and putting out the content that I wanted to see or hear or listen to. And guess what? I'm still doing it, baby. 27 years young. Fucking still out there. Still putting shit out. Still probably making my friends think, why are you putting this out? And you know what? To you, I say, because I can. And you should too. And you should not give a fuck about what people think. Anyway, I guess I could wrap that up there. Just make things. Go ahead and make things. And if people give you shit for it, that just means you're doing the right thing, because they're probably just projecting some insecurity. Depends, you know. I mean, if you're my age, people my age are not going to be. I don't think they're going to bully me for this. But yeah, I'm mostly thinking like younger people are going to be watching this. People that are still in high school, people that are maybe still in college or whatever, and you're young and you're worried about your image and stuff like that. Don't worry about it, man. It's easier said than done. But A good way to get over it is to just do it. And if people give you shit for it, especially in real life, just be like, yeah, well, I don't see you doing anything. Own it, man. Have a great day. I am out. Peace.